Good evening, everybody. This is Joe Delacruz, your host of Born Political, live here from SEC TV. I look back at my shows, and every single time I say how excited I am to have this guest or that guest on. And really, it's the quality of people in our community that we have and the folks I got to interview. Today, I've been actually giddy, thinking about getting to interview someone that's impacted me in a lot of different ways that she probably doesn't realize. There's a lot of people in this community in southeastern Connecticut and all of Connecticut, I'd say, that she's impacted. And a lot of folks may recognize her, or they may not. I'm not sure. I want to bring her on. We're going to talk about who she is, but then we're going to get back to the good work she's been doing. Cathy Zall, Executive Director from Homeless Hospitality Center. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
It is great being here. And I am not joking about how much I've looked forward to this today because, between my wife and I with Community Speaks Out,
Yeah.
a lot of the work we do with drug addiction absolutely crosses with the work that you've been doing for so long. And there's been times where...
We appreciate a lot what you do.
And we appreciate what you do. I think we didn't know exactly what you were doing and the impact you were having. And once we got involved with this and understood that, I had constituents reaching out to me, and my call was to you. And if you didn't have the answer, you knew how to find the answer. Right. And that's important when people are in crisis.
Definitely.
Yeah, so Born Political, we talked about it off air. It's a show more because I say a lot of stuff we do is political, and this isn't that show where we fight about politics, but we're going to talk about how you got where you are and who you are. And there's no better way to start to me, saying born. Where were you born?
I was born in Caracas, Venezuela.
Caracas, Venezuela.
Yeah, my father was Dutch and worked for an airline, and he was stationed in Caracas when I was born. So I don't remember anything about Venezuela, but
Yep.
That's where I was born.
But you were born, and so now you came as a baby and didn't remember it. Was your father a Dutch citizen?
Yes. So we lived in Holland for a while. So when I was in very early elementary school, I was in Holland, in the Netherlands, and then came back to the United States and have lived in the United States probably since elementary school. So.
And did you immigrate here, or was your mom a citizen?
My mom's a citizen, so I have my little birth
Dual
certificate.
citizenship.
No, well, not dual. I have my American passport and
Yep.
everything. My mom made sure to get that when I was in Venezuela, so I'm all set.
I was a little similar. My dad was in the service. I was born
Yeah.
in
Germany?
Army Hospital in Germany, and that was so. It's kind of cool to say you were born in. People ask me how it was, and you could ask me how my pacifier tasted when I was a baby. I had the same answer for you. I don't know.
Don't know, right?
I have no idea. So you went to you were in an elementary school in a different country. Was it much different when you came here? Was it?
I don't remember too much. I kind of.
You were young.
I don't have a super great remembrance of my early childhood.
Yep.
But, I grew up mainly in Westport, Connecticut.
Okay.
And so most of my life through high school, I was in Westport. So, the typical suburban
The formative
life.
years, right?
Yes.
So graduated from, is it Westport High or what high school is it?
Staples High School.
Staples.
Yes.
Still around, still dominating
I
in
think
sports.
so.
Oh,
Is
they
it?
are.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
Okay.
they're a huge sports school.
Okay.
If you didn't know that, they're huge. So so what's your? Did you go to college or did you?
Yeah, I went to Brown University in Providence.
Okay.
And after that, I spent some time in England. I had a very nice fellowship and spent some time in England, in London. And then I came back and I went to business school at NYU, Stern School of Business. I have an MBA in accounting.
Wow.
Then I worked in the accounting field and in not-for-profit management for quite a number of years. And then eventually I decided, probably in my mid-40s, to go to divinity school. So I went to the Yale Divinity School and graduated from the Yale Divinity School, and then spent a number of years as a minister, and then came back to the social services. So
Wow.
Kind of a
That
twisty road there.
in 5 minutes you described 10 lifetimes. That's an amazing amount of stuff. I mean, again, I didn't know. I know what you do, and I know the impact you have and had, in our region.
Yeah.
But no one really knows who each other are, where you were born, and these things. And
Right.
that, to me, to see the wealth of different experiences that you've had, and then to go back to social services from accountant, and I can't imagine you as an accountant. You're this person.
Oh, I was good at it.
I'm sure you were. I can guarantee you were great at. I think everything you do, you're great at. But I think you're probably doing this accounting, and it sounds like when you're, in your or your early 40s, you said, I want to do something different.
You combine the spiritual and accounting, you're good to go.
Once you have all that together, sound mind, sound finances. Those are good things to have.
Yeah.
So you leave accounting and you go into social services. And what was that a job directly for a state, or were you working for an
When
entity?
I first started,
Yeah.
I worked for the city of New York, and I did my accounting. I got my certified public accountant. I did that whole thing,
Yeah.
and it just didn't feel meaningful, honestly. I mean, it
Yeah.
was good and intellectually interesting and well-paying and everything else, but I really just wanted to do something that I thought made a contribution. And so I decided, at first I was in government, and then obviously I've been in a lot of different things since then.
Yeah.
But the meaning is an important thing to me, to feel like I'm making a contribution.
Well, you definitely have in a lot of different ways, and that's what we're building up to talk about. I'm
Sure.
keeping everybody on the edge of their seat.
Sure.
But when I said the name of who you work for, I think most people will recognize it. We really only have one homeless shelter, I would say, a hospitality center in the area, right? Is there
Well,
something?
there's two. There's a second one called Covenant Shelter,
Yeah.
which has been in the area for much longer than us. But we probably about 80% of the people experiencing homelessness in our region end up at the New London Homeless Hospitality Center. So we are by far the biggest shelter.
And to know where you guys came from, I know you've been involved how long now with the homeless
That's
hospitality?
16 years.
16 years. And we've actually, as Hillary the company, we had a chance to we did some handrails for you.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that go the gal, we're a steel metal.
Yeah.
Somebody was doing the job and they contracted us to put the rail on
Okay,
it or whatever.
okay.
You probably didn't know that about me.
I didn't know
but
that.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't.
did. We built that.
No wonder I
galvanized-
love those rails.
They're nice, right? And the things that protect you from falling in the window wells. Those, I think we did those
Yes,
too.
we needed that. We have some people who can fall into window
Yeah,
wells.
absolutely. So if nobody, I mean, I grew up in the projects that abut that property.
Okay.
It's actually the Huntington Street side, so it's just over the bridge, but all kind of collected together
Yeah.
there. And that house, I didn't even remember what it was as a kid, and I don't know if it was a private home or what it was, but
It was a church.
it wasn't.
That was
oh,
the
that's
Polish,
Right, it was a church.
Polish National Catholic Church.
You're right.
Yeah. So
Now-
what's the shelter now was the church building, and the
Yeah.
other building was the rectory.
And I used to cut through ye old mill. We said it was the big cut through to save time.
Yeah.
It saved no time because the sidewalk along the mill
Yeah.
was much faster. So it was a church. I was trying to remember because in my head I thought it was a homeless shelter for forever. And it
No,
wasn't.
no.
This is
And that was
recent.
actually our third location. I mean, when we first started, we were just opened up a church hall at Mount Moriah Fire
Yeah.
Baptized Holiness Church.
Yeah.
Volunteers threw some mats down on the ground and opened the doors to people. And then we eventually went to St. James, where we had, cots and a little bit better. And then eventually we were able to purchase that property on State Pier Road, where we are now, and renovate it using state bond funds.
Well, which is
Thank
which is
you,
good.
State of Connecticut.
And I will say I love charity and it's good to give, but it's policy. To me it's legislation and policy that fix major problems. And homelessness is, although we talked about it off air, it's not like we're in other parts of the country where we're experiencing these massive amount of people that are on our street. And we'll talk to how we got there, because I think you guys noticed the problem early.
Yeah.
And you fix homelessness not by providing a place for someone to come sleep forever.
Right.
You fix it by getting folks on their feet. And when
housing.
folks show up, the surprise is that no two stories are alike, right?
That's right.
We're not solving problems like carte blanche, just saying, hey, everyone's gonna succeed with this method.
Right.
It's like addiction. Homelessness is there's
It's like
different
all of
reasons.
us, right? We all have our own paths. But I think the policy and the people are involved. Like, it's very important to us to have volunteers, because I think a lot of people have this perception of homelessness that it's not, that there's somehow people's own fault, or this couldn't happen to anybody I know, or whatever else. And so I think part of building the impetus for the policy changes is you have to change hearts and minds at the same time.
You do.
And I think when people volunteer, when they see what we're doing, I think it makes a difference. It builds support that hopefully translates into policy eventually.
Yeah, I think it's overwhelming to think, how do you take care of this massive problem? And really, it's on a given night, say on a night like tonight, it's not super cold out, but what would the population be like? Oh, how many folks would you expect to have tonight?
Well, at the shelter, probably we'd have, because in the winter, we don't turn anybody away. In most of the year, we have a waiting list for the shelter.
Yep.
But in the winter, obviously, we don't. And so we probably will have 60 people there tonight.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there will be another number of people, which is harder to measure, who will choose to camp or to stay in other places.
Yep.
And then there's a whole group of people who are kind of couch surfing, as they call it. Maybe
Yep.
they stay a couple nights here, then they move over there. So there's kind of different stages of homelessness, but they're all people who are homeless because they have no place they can go to on a regular basis.
And when you say those numbers of 60, or those numbers almost sound small when you think of the population, but those numbers would be much larger if it wasn't for the work that I think that not just, when I say you, I know I'm addressing your whole entire group of folks, because there's a lot of volunteers and a lot of people that do a lot of hard work. But there's a lot of things that happen. There's vouchers that go to hotels. There's people that you have connections with that, I mean, we had being a state representative, someone had reached out because it was their friend that was living on the other side of the state, and it was in Southington, and they were having this horrible time of trying to get into a shelter, and my wife asked if I could help, and I called you.
Right.
And then you gave me the name of somebody that we ended up getting right to the bottom of it.
Right.
Because you put us in touch with the exact person that we needed to talk to in Southington.
Good.
And it worked out. It was something that, again, how do you connect people? And a lot of it is, I say word of mouth, but I would have had no idea who to call.
Well, I mean, I think the way that I think about it is that I think what we're basically trying to do is to help people rely on their resilience that they have. And I think what most people don't think about is how hard it is when you have nothing, when you have no money, when you have no phone, when you have no... And so a lot of what I feel what we're doing is we're just giving people some tools that they need in order to figure their own way out of it. We don't solve homelessness for people, right? People solve their own homelessness, but we do something very important, which is we provide some resources, some information, sometimes some money, sometimes a voucher, sometimes a ride, sometimes, whatever.
I saw you guys do resume classes, or where volunteers come in and help somebody write a resume.
What people need. And I think that's what I think we're trying to help people leverage their own agency. And I think that's just very, very important to me.
What I saw, because I've gotten to visit there a couple times.
Yeah.
We've done walkthroughs, and as a state rep, I've got to go through there. My wife was a member of a church in Groton that brought food, I think, once a year, and the funny thing was, I sat down with a woman one day, because you encourage, don't just drop off something, come in and see people.
Come and say, yeah.
Have a seat, meet the people who are in this predicament, and who you're helping. And before, as a legislator, I think it's important to understand that it's not just this building that's holding people that are in a situation, but there's stories behind it and how they got there. The woman I spoke with that night was from the other side of the state, and it was actually Southington. There's two Southington stories, but and I, out of curiosity, I said, "How did you end up in New London? Like, did you come here as a kid, or do you have an aunt, or because there's usually some connection?"
Yeah.
And her connection that night was she had looked up homeless centers across the state of Connecticut. This was probably not what you want to hear.
No, I don't.
But she found it because she was never homeless. She had a medical condition that was going to make her, she knew she was losing everything. It was, the writing was on the wall, and she prepped, and she said, and she picked New London because the amount of people matched the amount of people in the town she's used to. She probably never dreamed how condensed the 28,000 people were, because it's very close. And her story was intriguing to me because she said, no, I set it up and I came. And she ended up in Mohegan under permanent housing.
Good.
So everything worked out beautifully. And what I got to take back as a legislator was to go in and when we're divvying up money and people are talking about, well, those problems are in New Haven and Hartford and New London, you guys have homeless shelters because of your policies or what you do. And, I told that story. And to me, we're all in this together. So when you're legislating, when you're up there thinking about, how we divide up money, remember that homelessness isn't, usually if you're from New London, you're probably not at that homeless just because if you have a big family, you're probably couch surfing or whatever. And this person that came from the other, I said, how would we quantify? How can I tell you that how many people we helped? And that's why legislatively, I thought maybe if we had numbers of not saying what hometown you're from or where you say you're from, where'd you graduate high school from? So if I end up in a homeless shelter in New York and I say I graduated from New London, Connecticut, or or wherever, or somewhere on the other side of the state, not that we're trying to count against somebody or say ha, this isn't our homeless person, but to put real numbers to who's coming from where, and I don't know if that'd even be helpful, but when we're divvying up money, I think that other legislators need to know that this is actually a human effort.
But I think we really have and you know this better than me, because we have this city government without a county government, I do think that there's a really unfair responsibility that falls on cities. And the city tax base, right, has to support the sanitation, the police, all of the ancillary services. So unfortunately, I think it's a real issue that it isn't fair that cities have to, including New London for our region, shoulder all that cost. So I think one thing that we could all do is let's recognize that there are people from Groton, from Ledyard, from Montville, from Southington, wherever they're from, and have a better mechanism to support the work that should be centralized. We don't want 169 shelters in
No, you don't.
It wouldn't be efficient. On the other hand, that there's so few shelters does unfairly sort of concentrate some of the issue in cities. And so I think there's some tough policy stuff there.
That's a nationwide discussion, because you hear it in the media, you hear other folks say, geez, it's the city's issue, and that's why I say I'd love for all homeless shelters is just let's take it back a little bit and get a little bit of background. And to me, the best way to find out, and maybe not, some folks didn't make it to high school. Maybe ask them the last day of school they attended and what state and city it was from. You don't have to be specific, but maybe it puts a face on who actually is experiencing this, because I think we're going to find overwhelmingly that it's everybody. From everywhere, from all walks of life.
And I can't tell you how many times people come to volunteer and they see somebody they went to high school with or somebody they worked with. Homelessness can affect anybody. And so that's an important thing to recognize. But how do we keep people close to their support networks? So people shouldn't be going across the state to go someplace else because you have family or you have friends.
That was very unique, I think, that situation.
That's probably, I think it is. The vast majority of people, are from our region. And if they're not from our region, we try to talk with them and do bus tickets and help them reconnect with wherever they're from. Because, as you may be aware, when people come out of prison, for example, you're released wherever you were sentenced.
Yes.
So we have people that show up at the doorstep of the Homeless Hospitality Center. They're not from New London, but they were sentenced in New London. And so to me, it's a lot smarter to say to that person, where are you from? How can we help you get back to Boston, to Hartford, to wherever you're from, and reconnect where you have those kind of relationships?
At least roots or a couch, right? So where somewhere a friend's going to be able to help you out. And I think that's where we are least effective sometimes. Being a legislator, and from my point of view, to not be able to always legislate towards what's happening, like at that door right then.
Right.
Like not for $50 after a 5-year sentence is not, or $250. That's not the answer. The answer is, we have people now, and my wife included. I think we question sometimes, why these people, why do we give them access to these tablets? And that's something that's happened in prison lately. And overwhelmingly, they think that they're just playing on the internet all day. But a lot of that ends up being, how do I set up my next job? my next this, my next that.
Right.
How do I stay connected to the community? Like virtually it could be like almost you didn't leave, you physically weren't there, but somehow physically you came out of prison after 3 or 4 years, whatever you did, and now you have this job lined up.
Wouldn't that be
Or
better?
you have. It sounds better, right? Better to you at least, right? Or better to all of us.
Well, but I mean, that's for all of us. I think having connections, having a sense of a place to be and a meaningful work and money, that has to reduce the recidivism, I would think, but I'm not an expert in it.
And it does. The numbers all support it. And you do pilot programs. We do, because we do things in small chunks to prove it first. But I like to jump in with 2 feet sometimes and say, hey, we know investing in people is always the right answer.
Right.
We can talk about it all we want, but if we go back to early education, we understand that, there's some homes that, where 2 parents went to college, that kid shows up at kindergarten and they know their ABCs, their 1, 2, 3s. They can sometimes count to 100 and everyone's amazed at those kids, but they're no different than the kid that can't count next to them.
Right.
They just didn't have the base. And I'm not saying those parents are good or bad. They may be working 2 jobs. They may, or for whatever reason, to me, investing and making sure that, say, those kids that would normally be walking into that classroom so far behind, and if you talk to a teacher, teaching the gap is 90% of their job is figuring out how far can I go away from this kid where this kid's not bored. And really, it ends up holding everyone back in the end, and that kid too. But really, it ends up being, to me, I think, is people.
Yes. That's right.
With COVID, I think one thing I did learn, I think we always have these dreams about, well, if something really happened, the American government would just step in and we take care of it. And COVID proved that no, government is one government, and although they have thousands and thousands of employees, and the state has thousands of employees, there's 350 million individuals. And we found out during COVID that if we have to walk next door to our elderly neighbor who shouldn't be walking in the grocery store or shouldn't be there, that we could do that. And we can reach out, and that little, and I had some neighbors that we reached out to that were just like, oh, no thank you, but thank you. And we've had people reach out to us and help us when we, hey, I'm at the store, what do you need? Things that were never done before in human history. In human history maybe.
Well, in human history, I think
but
they
not
were.
in our history.
Not recently.
Not recently.
Right.
Our history was I'm at the store and without calling my neighbor to say, hey, do you need anything? I'm at the store. Oh God, I need butter. Like, you could cut down on so many different things. It's just, honestly intriguing to me that people think that, you said it earlier, government can't do it all. Like we have to have connections and
Community
outreach.
connections, yep. I agree.
And you guys have built that. I mean, the connections that you have at the hospitality center, to me, they're endless and timeless, because you probably, I know you don't do it for the glory. I know you don't. And I don't know if anyone does it for the glory. It's the feeling that you get.
I hope not, because there isn't much.
There's not much glory, right? But there's the miracles.
Of course.
The miracles you see,
course.
the person that you thought maybe you say, I don't know, because we do it in addiction. There's some that are so far, and they've hurt everybody in their life, and they don't think they can get back. And lo and behold, I look online, and these people that were in that exact position 5 years ago are buying a home and having their first baby with someone they just married. I mean, that's how miracles happen, but they need a little bit of help.
And for me, it's, obviously it's a secular job, but it's also a spiritual thing for me. I think that's what we're all called to do on this world, is to be in the situation, whatever it is, and do what we can.
Yep.
I think that's just, I just feel it's very fundamental. I think that's what the gospel is. I think that's, and so, it's an honor. It's a privilege. It's a privilege, really. I feel blessed, honestly, to be able to do it. So I'm fortunate.
Love that you're there. I mean, I knew I was interviewing today, so I was looking up random things. I'm a random thinker guy.
Okay.
And I just Googled, and if anyone wants to Google it, you can challenge it, because this is Google, so it's not exact. But there's 254 billion square foot of residential living in the United States of America. 250 billion square feet. That's apartments, that's houses, single family. So if you added it all up, that's how much there is. And if you divide that by 350 million people, there's 726 square foot of covered conditioned space for every person in America, right?
Huh.
Right? These are numbers
I think
that.
I see where you're going.
So our homeless population is estimated, but they say it's around 500,000. So when I divided it by 349,000, I mean 349.5 million, it came out to 726 square feet
Right.
each. To give every person divided by the 500,000, the extra homeless, you only lost 1 square foot of space per person. And we know those numbers don't jive. I grew up in a house, we were in the projects in London, we had 8 people in the house. The square footage obviously was divided up a little different. But we have folks that live in homes that are by themselves that heat 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. I mean, our homeless problem could be solved almost instantly if people just reached out. We're talking about 1 square foot of giving up. And it sounds so basic and so simple, but when it sounds, to me, the 500,000 number sounds overwhelming for people that when they hear, oh my goodness, there's 500,000 people to wrap your head around it. But it's only 1 extra square foot.
Yeah.
It's proof that we can do
But
it.
unfortunately, if that 1 square foot is next to you, that's when people start to go nuts.
They do. And that's, I mean, I see it all the time. You know, the folks they get nervous about how much, or that I'm paying this in taxes, or I'm doing this, and this is too much, and this is overwhelming. And I said, just remember what you have. You know, if you're in a house with 5 bedrooms and you're struggling paying your taxes and you live alone, do what my family would do. Rent a bedroom, right? I mean, really and truly, if there's going to be an environmental effort and push, and it's helping humanity, we're helping each other, we're reaching out. I mean, I'll set it down at a table if somebody, if I'm waiting in a restaurant, I've asked, hey, if you don't care, I'll go sit with you. Why should we both wait for a table? Or like those things work, and they do it. They do stuff in Europe that we seem stuck on not doing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're
It's not
almost
the American way.
It's
right
not.
now.
Right. But we gotta figure out our new American way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things happening in our world and country, and I thought COVID. I'm the ultimate optimist. I mean, I thought social
Good.
media was going to be a blessing to the world, and I think it still can be.
Right.
I think if it's used correctly, I mean.
But I think a lot of it goes back to what you were saying with connections, is that we need to feel connected to each other, even if I don't know you. You know, I think somehow, and we were talking a little bit before, this image of the self-made person, you know, that
Yes.
you did it all on your own, and none of us did.
No.
Right? And if we can somehow see that these are our neighbors, these are our brothers and sisters in a generic sense,
Yeah.
but it just feels so much those are other people, those are
Yeah.
different people, those are, you know, and
Not me.
somehow we have to start seeing that we're all one community, and we need to take care of each other. I know that sounds corny maybe, but
No, it doesn't.
I honestly believe that's the truth.
They said all you need is love, and I truly believe that. And we're out of time right now, like just about.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No. My wife's going to say you talk too much because
No.
Cathy had a lot to say. But I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to welcome you back anytime because or
Sure.
if there's anybody that you're serving that wanted to come on, even they'd be anyone's invited on the show. So.
Thank you
for coming on the show. We'll see you next week on Born Political, guys. Thanks for having me in your house, and we'll see you next week. It's a fast.